Now we get to our indeterminist. Right. It should be noted that indeterminism, broadly speaking, comes in two different types, major types. Right? There's indeterminism, arguments for it that stem from, that are based in physical uncertainty, notions of physical reality defined by quantum mechanics, such as Karl Popper's, who will be the first of the two that we discuss. And then there's the more classical version of indeterminism, which says that not all forms of causation are strict causation. Right? There are what are called necessary but insufficient causation. There is what's called necessary but insufficient causation. And this is a probabilistic view of the universe. Right? An example of this would be Jean-Paul Sartre's. The latter doesn't need to deny. So this necessary but insufficient causation view does not need to deny cause and effect, has a place in our lives, it just acknowledges that not in our choices as individuals. Right? Merely needs to demonstrate that there are, with regard to some events, it's not clear, at the very least, that strict causality is at play. And if strict causality doesn't play over every cause and effect relationship, then that opens the window for indeterminism. Not necessarily soft determinism, but indeterminism. So, let's go through the example of Karl Popper, our physical indeterminist. Karl Popper's version of indeterminism is based on his theory of falsificationalism, right? Which is central to his understanding of quantum mechanics. Not a particularly nuanced view, especially by today's standards, because he was writing it in the early 50s, right? Or late 40s, early 50s. So, falsificationalism is the philosophical position that the only reason we hold onto our current theories as true is because we haven't shown them to be false yet. The key word there being yet. So eventually, all of our true theories will in turn be falsified. Popper was a big fan of indeterminism, and he wrote on the subject using the metaphor of clocks and clouds. Right? Each one being a symbol for one position, one of the two positions, the determinist position versus the indeterminist position. Right? Clocks are rigid. They operate according to set rules. Gear A turns gear B, turns gear C, coils spring A turns second hand, turns the second, which makes the second hand turn. Right? And second hand turning causes the process to repeat until it goes all the way around and you get the minute hand moving, and so on and so forth. Right? This is an example of the deterministic model. Clouds, by all appearances, change at fucking random. Right? There's no say over, there's no rhyme or reason to how clouds adjust, at least from down here. Now, the determinists will say that all clocks all physical systems are like clocks, even clouds. Right? So that is to say that even if we can't immediately account for what makes a particular cloud change the way it does, we can give an explanation for it. Right? We can account for all the physical factors that go into a cloud changing from looking like a dinosaur to looking like, I don't know, the Trix Rabbit. That's not much of a change, though, is it? To looking like Mickey Mantle. Right? Or worse yet, Mickey Rooney. Meanwhile, the indeterminist wants to say that all physical systems are like clouds. Right? They're not defined by strict causation. In fact, they're more probabilistic in their movement, fundamentally. So, Popper bases this idea on quantum mechanics, right? Specifically, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which was the most popular one at the time that he was writing. Right? But it's still an interpretation based on a fundamental truth that hasn't been, or fundamental truth of quantum theory that hasn't been overturned or shattered, right, in any substantial way. This being that quantum mechanics has shown that fundamental subatomic particles like electrons, quarks, and gluons, muons, and whatnot are random and chance events, right? They move according to probability rather than strict causation. Right? So, if the fundamental base particles of reality are random and chance events, then everything that builds off of them are also random chance events, right? Operates according to probability first and foremost. It might be that they operate macro level objects above the atomic, at the atomic level and above, operate at such a degree of regularity that it gives the illusion of strict causality, but it's just that, an illusion. Right? It's still probabilistic in nature. Right? And if all physical systems are based off of probabilistic movements rather than strict causation, then by nature we're indeterminate. That's a happy thought, which is, of course, why I have to come in with an objection now. Right? The objection is actually a formulated argument, right, that goes, well, using his own theory of falsificationism against it, falsificationism against him. Right? Quantum mechanics has shown that base particles are indeterminate. Proposition 1. Proposition 2. Thus, we are not predetermined since we're built from base particles. Right? So it gives us Popper's basic argument in a nutshell. Number 3, quantum mechanics is a theory. Number 4, we only hold on to our current theories because we have yet to prove them to be, yet to show them to be false. Right? Number 5, quantum mechanics will be falsified. Number 6, conclusion, we don't actually know jack. Right? We don't know anything. We can't actually conclude anything. By Popper's own theory of falsificationism, which he says is the cornerstone behind quantum mechanics and QM understandings within QM, right? All theories of QM, we cannot actually conclude one way or the other anything from QM, right? Because it is itself a theory, and all theories will eventually be shown to be false in some fundamental, meaningful way. And Popper does have a reply to this. He says that, okay, yeah, your points that QM is a theory, falsificationism is a thing, it will eventually be falsified, they're all true. But falsifiability is based on the idea that base particles are indeterminate. You can't talk about falsifying or showing something to be untrue, right? Revolutions of thought, according to Popper, without first being able to unearth further truths, which is something that's only available to us, would only be available to us if the world was indeterminate and probabilistic rather than based off of strict causation. There's some flaws in Popper's reply, but rather than deal with the myriad of problems with that, we'll go for the simpler response to it, which is fine. But falsifiability itself is a theory. Right? and if we're to take everything else as being true, then including falsifiability itself, right? Then eventually we will come to some base determinate truth, either one that upholds your view or overturns your view, and falsifiability will itself be falsified. Will prove that there's nowhere else to go. Right?